Hey everybody, welcome to Unleash Your Greatness. I'm Adam Platt, and today we're going to be talking about limiting beliefs and how we can overcome them. And so I'm going to cue up the intro, and then we're going to get right into it. All right, thanks for joining me today. And if you like this episode and you like what you hear, then please feel free or please make sure to subscribe and like and comment on this. I would appreciate it so much. But let's get into the story and start talking about limiting beliefs. So my family and I grew up in the 80s, and so I was a huge Karate Kid fan. And it was a lot of fun to watch that show and to just, you know, karate was just a thing back in the 80s, right? It was a huge thing, and I think it's always been a thing, but it was just big. Karate Kid like really took it to the next level, and it was a lot of fun. And so over the Christmas break, we found Cobra Kai on Netflix, which is, for those who don't know, Cobra Kai is the next generation, or it's the Karate Kid and Johnny, his bully that bullied him in the first Karate Kid movie. It's their life like right now. So 30 years later or whatever it is now. And it was a fascinating show to watch. We kind of binge watched it while we were home for the holidays. And it was really interesting. And the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I thought it related to all of us and how we view limiting beliefs and how we can overcome them. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of that movie, and then I want to relate it to limiting beliefs, because here's the thing, that the show is primarily kind of from, at least the first season specifically, was kind of from Johnny's perspective. And so 30 years later, he's kind of this deadbeat guy. He's got one son who's in high school. He's pretty much a deadbeat dad. He can't keep a job down. He does like handyman work type stuff, but he drinks himself a lot to oblivion. He can't keep a job, like I said, and he has all these bad feelings towards Daniel Russo, who is the Karate Kid, right? And Daniel is very successful. He's a car dealership, owns car dealerships, him and his wife, and they have a couple kids, and they have a daughter that's also in high school, but Johnny just really despises Daniel, and rightfully so, I guess, if you go back and say, he kind of ruined his life, right? But he has all these grudges against Daniel, and Daniel's very successful. He has these car dealerships and all these things going for him, and from the outside, Daniel looks like he has this perfect life, right? Nice house, beautiful kids, beautiful wife, all these things, and pretty successful and wealthy, and Johnny just really hates that. Johnny, again, he's pretty much this deadbeat guy. He can't keep a job. He and the thing about Johnny is he's like living in the past. Like the things that were cool in high school, he still is like, that's cool, right? Like, the Thunderbird and the music, and he doesn't know anything about, modern technology like cell phones and Facebook and all those kind of things. He lives in the past. And what's interesting is, so he decides to, through some experiences and running into one of his neighbor's kids, one of the kids that lives next to him in the complex that he lives in, he decides to open up Cobra Kai again, which was the dojo that he was a part of that hated Daniel, right? The kids all bullied Daniel in the first Karate Kid movie. Well, he decides to reopen up Cobra Kai. And of course, he goes in with the same mentality that his teacher, his sensei, had, and that is, no mercy, take out the bad guys. It doesn't matter what you got to do. You just, no mercy and all this stuff. And that's kind of what he's teaching at first. And the kids are like, yeah, I'm going to be this hardcore karate person, all the students he has. And it kind of creates this conflict between Daniel and he has a few students, and one of his students is actually Johnny's son, which is another twist of the story, but that's beside the fact. But there's this whole conflict, Daniel's teaching his students to be like, respectful and only use karate for defense, and all the things that Mr. Miyagi taught him. And Johnny's like, go out and hurt people and no mercy and all these things at first. But then something will happen with like his child, his son, who's learning under Daniel, and they all of a sudden are like, he'll change his kind of perspective, and he'll go kind of in a new direction. He's like, cheating is not acceptable, and he starts telling his students, these different things, and he kind of gets a shift in his perspective a little bit, and then something else will happen, and he'll go back. And I think oftentimes we do that to ourselves, and so I want to relate kind of that story, but how I view limiting beliefs and how we can overcome them in our lives. So, first of all, I think that there's times where we feel like we're making progress, and then all of a sudden something will happen, and we'll resort back to how we were, kind of like Johnny does, and we get stuck in this mindset of how do I get through this? How do I, or why did I even try to make a change? Because it didn't work. It didn't benefit me, because they couldn't see that even though right up front it didn't benefit them, because the things that Johnny was changing did benefit him in the long run, but for some reason he couldn't see that. And so he couldn't really understand how that was helping him. And so he would kind of go back. He'd take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. He didn't go all the way back maybe, but he would take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? So he would regress. And how often do we do that in our lives? Like we try to make a change and we see a little bit of progress, but not the progress we want. And so we go back, or we maybe don't go all the way back, but we go back a little bit, right? To some of the things, some of the habits or the routines that maybe weren't benefiting us, or different things like that. And I really think that a lot of people have that problem. And so, first of all, so here's kind of what I learned from Cobra Kai and how we can relate it to limiting beliefs. Is number one, this is how we can overcome limiting beliefs. I'm going to relate it back to Johnny and even some of Daniel Russo, the Karate Kid, and how I learned that, or how I relate it to the Cobra Kai show. And so first thing is stop living in the past. Johnny lives in the past, and he's stuck there. Like through the whole series, he's totally stuck. He's always thinking like, well, back when I was in high school, or back when I was a cool guy and stuff. And he's always saying these stuff like, if you go around and you're saying things like when I was a kid, or when I was in high school, or when I was the star football player, or when I, right? We live in the past, and that is a sure sign that we are living in our limiting beliefs. We're limiting ourselves by our past, okay? It's okay to be fond of things that happened and to remember those things, but don't always be like, when I was in high school, when I was a young father or young mother, or when I, things like that. Because if we have that mindset, then we are limiting ourselves to our past, okay? We shouldn't limit ourselves to our past for what we can become in the future, right? We can always become more in the future. So stop limiting yourself on your past, right? Move past that. And the second thing is to change your perspective. One of the biggest things I noticed is people have this perspective of I can't, I won't, I'm not good enough, right? Change your perspective. Or because this thing happened in my life, then I can't do something, or I have this disability, or I'm stupid, or whatever. You got to change your perspective. The whole reason why people have limiting beliefs is because of their perspective. Because here's what happens, right? Something happens to us in our youth, when we're younger, or young adult, or whatever, and that creates a perception. And that perception creates our reality. Our reality creates our emotions create our thoughts create our actions, and our actions create our results. So that's the progression. So if we want to change all that, we have to change our perception. And it starts at the very beginning, right? So, and how we do that is by going back to that moment and being like, okay, that horrible thing happened, but what can I learn from that thing that happened to me? What can I learn, right? Having a growth mindset instead of a limiting belief mindset, or a scarcity mindset, or whatever you want to call it. You've got to have a perception of what can I learn? How can I do something different? Like, don't get stuck like Johnny, where you're living your days, the good old days in the past, right? But change your perception. Like, okay, this happened. How can I change that to be a benefit to me? What can I learn from it? How can I do something different in the future so that doesn't happen again? Okay, that's how we change our limiting beliefs. We have this perception that things will never get different. Well, we can change what we do differently by changing our perception. So that's the start is you got to change your perception. When you change your perception, you change your thoughts, you change your reality, your thoughts, your emotions, right? You have become more positive in life, and positivity, your mindset, is 80% of your success. So when you change to a positive mindset because of your perception has changed, now all of a sudden you open yourself for so much more, and your beliefs are not limited. You have a growth mindset that I can learn and grow. And once you have that, then that creates the emotion of I can go do this. I can have greater confidence in myself. I can go and I can do things, and that's going to create results, right? You take action, that creates results. So the first thing is stop living in the past. Second thing, change your perception. Once you change your perception, everything else changes with you along the way. And then the last thing is to take action on those emotions, right? When you get a positive mindset, you got to take action. So again, relating that back to Johnny, is when he decides to take action, that's when things change for him. That's when his life gets a little bit better, right? There's the little boy that he teaches across the street has a mother who's single, and when he goes and asks her out, then he gets a relationship and it gets better. His life gets a little bit better. He takes action. He decides to do something, because what happens is as we take action, that leads to momentum. As we see momentum, we see that there's improvements, which causes confidence to come into our life. And as confidence comes into our life, we get more success, right? So confidence leads to success. We need confidence in ourselves and our abilities and our belief that we can accomplish things in order to have success. So you got to take action. And it might just be a small thing at first, and that's okay. Just take small things, go out and create those actions so that you can create momentum, which leads to confidence, which leads to greater success. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Again, I love the show Cobra Kai. It is a little rough around the edges. Johnny's a little rough. Like I if you've watched it, you know what I'm talking about. But it really is quite interesting. And if we go back to Daniel, so Daniel in the future, and we kind of relate these things to him. So he has this perception like, I'm the hero, I can do anything, right? Well, he doesn't really see things from Johnny's perspective. And the show gives a little bit more insight into Johnny and his perspective. And yes, he has all these limiting beliefs. He has his past. He has this hatred towards Daniel. But the Karate Kid, Daniel, also has these limited beliefs that he's the hero, that nothing can go wrong, that he's gonna kick the competition and all these things. That's kind of his tagline for his dealership, his car dealership. And from the outside, everything looks beautiful and perfect in his life, but him and his wife have some struggles. They argue sometimes, like everybody does. And I think sometimes we think that everybody else has a perfect life. And we don't look at the fact, or we don't see the fact that they have their own struggles, right? And his daughter has some friends that aren't always a great influence on her. She does some stupid things. So Daniel has his problems too. But from the outside, everybody thinks they're perfect. They have this beautiful home, beautiful family, beautiful, Daniel's got all this stuff. But a lot of people don't see what's going on with all these people we saw on the internet, on the social media. We don't know what's going on with them. And so that's another way to kind of look at your limiting beliefs, like comparing yourself to other people. So I guess if there was 4 things I would say, that's number 4. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Stop comparing yourself to what you see on the internet, and stop comparing yourself. Like if you want to be have a certain lifestyle or something like that, and you're relating it to somebody you see online, just know that it's taking them years to get there. There's very few like overnight successes. And you can't compare where you are today to where other people are 10 years down the line from where they started. Yeah, you may not know exactly how they got there, but I guarantee there was some struggle, there was some hardship, there were some things they had to go through. So that's my message for today. That's really how I view overcoming limiting beliefs, and there's so much more to it, but that is like the basics, like how to really overcome limiting beliefs, like at the fundamental level, is stop living in the past, change your perception, take action, which is going to create results and confidence that you can do hard things. And then if there was a fourth one, it would be stop comparing yourself to other people. Just stop doing it. So I hope this serves you. I hope you got some value from this. If you did, please go and like and comment and subscribe. I would appreciate it. And so you can be notified when new episodes come out. And everybody who is listening, thanks so much. And go out there and live your life the best you can. Start unleashing the greatness within yourself that I know is deep down inside of each and every person out there, and be awesome today. Go and have a great day, and we will talk to you later.